Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar with my good friend, Greg Syfan from Syfan Logistics. We're going to be talking about the strategic selection process of picking tech partners, that are going to be with you for the long haul. I've been fortunate to sit in that chair for many, many years, 18 years of, figuring out which partners do I need to partner up with, and at 3PLs and carriers that I've worked with. Now serving on the other side as the president of Qued, where we're bringing appointment scheduling to the industry, is a kind of a different spot to be able to sit now. And so I'm joined by Greg Syfan, who's the president of Syfan Logistics, who's going to be able to give some of his own personal experiences and some of the things that he thinks about for their organization and their team as they're evaluating new technology partners. So, Greg, thank you so much for being with us. Would you give a little bit of a background and share a little bit about the history of Syfan Logistics and kind of how you serve that team there?
Well, I'd love to. You said we were on a time frame here, so I need to be careful. I'll give the short version, even though the short version still starts back in 1984. Me and my father and my brother. We started up Turbo Logistics and ran it for 20 years, up over 100 million in revenue, and then sold it in 2006. We had a 5-year non-compete, and we're blessed to open up our second logistics company, Syfan Logistics, in 2011. We started with 36 of our team members from Turbo, so we hit the ground running. We had an aggressive 5-year goal to hit 100 million in sales. It took 20 with the first company, and we wanted to do it in 5 with this company. We missed it. We didn't hit it, but we did hit it in our 6th year. So that was good.
Yeah.
We're 4 times that size now. We've got 440 team members currently. And I like to say, and you've heard this before, but we are a team-driven, service-minded company. We work hard, play hard, and we're not afraid to ask to be blessed, that we can be a blessing to others.
Yeah, I absolutely love that, my friend. And I know you guys have gone through a big renovation over there, right? I mean, you've really built out just a beautiful space there for the team.
We have. Even with all this technology that's coming out, we are all about relationships. And so to do those relationships correctly, you got to have people. And so we had expanded. We were 125 strong in our operations, and we expanded to get 225 in operations. So we've got some growing room.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, it's great to see. Good to talk to you again. Appreciate you being here for the webinar today. So, as we kind of set the stage around picking tech partners that you actually want to keep, I think you and I have both been in similar situations where you go through this process, you see a new piece of technology, you're excited about what it could bring to the team. And then, you kind of got to figure out, hey, is this who we want to partner with long-term? Like, what does that really look like? And how is that going to play out for the team members, not just for today into the future, right? As you talk about growth, what allows you to scale and build the way that you need to be able to serve your clients really, really well. So, when the team at Syfan, when they're kind of evaluating technology partners, what are some of the key factors that kind of like drive your decision-making process?
That's a great question. It's all of this to do with technology. I don't think it's ever easy, but it seems that it has gotten actually harder to do. The basics, who are they? Even though this is a big industry, everybody knows everybody. And so, number one, who are the players in that company? How connected are they in logistics specifically? How long have they been in business? What are their goals? We actually try to get to know them on a personal basis. And then, do the old fashioned thing of checking out references, because anybody can show you anything on a PowerPoint presentation and they can actually make it look fantastic. But if you take the time, to call the references and make sure that they haven't been doing business with them for a month, that it's been years, and that not only is the product working, but in all businesses, you're going to have issues and problems. So how is that company on taking care of those issues and problems when they come up? The sale is the easiest part, and that's when everything looks great. But actually, when you're doing the work with them, how do they follow up? That's important to us.
No, I think that's a great point. I think I would agree with you that back in the day when you were looking for a specific partner in an area, there weren't always 5 or 6 different partners to look at, right? You had a limited pool that you were going after to try to kind of figure out, hey, what okay, yeah, this person, and using your network, kind of to what your advice was there, using your network to be able to say, hey, who knows these people? Who knows their history? Who knows what they've done in the past? How can we make sure that this is going to be a good fit for the long term? And technology, it continues to change at a rapid pace, right? I think it would be wild for us, not to kind of have this discussion, because there's always, each conference, there's a new player. There's a new piece of technology. There's a new thing. There's a new shiny object. And I'll be honest, I'm a guy that I could get a shiny object syndrome from time to time. I don't know if you struggle with that, but I do. Where you see that next thing, you don't want to miss, right? You don't want to be missed out on it. And so you kind of want to try. Yeah, right. Exactly. You don't want to get left behind. You want to be able to do this. And so when there are so many options, right? There's so many different things. How do you make sure that when you really get in that partnership, that it is a good partnership long term? There's a lot of things that I think one of the things you spoke about was understanding where they're going with the product, which I think is a really interesting point there. But how do you really make sure that partnership is going to be right, not just for you as the president, but for the team members throughout the entire organization who are going to have to engage with this partner?
Well, you got to remember, when we were back in the business at Turbo, we were still having our drivers check call us twice a day. I mean, that's the way we knew where they were. And so when we got back into the business, just 5 years later, I was amazed that there was technology that you could connect to the driver's cell phone and have cookie trails of where they are. I mean, technology really took a big jump. Just, even now, what was that? The 5 years that we missed, but that's been now 12 years ago. And so technology continues to just ramp up really, really quick. It's actually, really hard to figure out which ones you want to build a relationship with. We look at that as far as a relationship. How is our relationship with them? Are their goals like our goals? Does their culture match our culture? Are they going to continue to expand and offer us new technologies? Are they going to focus on this one element? And in some situations, when they focus on one element, if that's all they focus on, and that's an element that we need, and it's going to continue to work, that's fine. That works out great with us. There's a problem with some companies trying to do too many things, and they get spread too thin, and then they're not doing anything really good. So it's a difficult task.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that when you're striking up these partnerships and starting to really build these relationships, like one of the things that I was always really cautious of is making sure that their roadmap aligned with my roadmap, right? And so, as you talk to these vendors, I think it's a good story to be able to say, okay, this is what you're doing. And we get this question a lot at Qued, and I really appreciate this. They'll say, okay, we really love this. We really love what you're doing here, but what's next, right? And I can appreciate that from sitting in the seat, wanting to try to learn and say, okay, this is great. Greg, I think almost every single time that you and I have a call, you say, okay, this is good. This is good. What's next? What's coming? What's coming down the pipeline? And I think having that constant question, not even just during that initial, courtship where you're trying to figure out, hey, is this a partnership that we want to lean into? But even beyond that, right? Okay, yeah, we're signed. Yeah, we're live. But still continuing to work in these partnerships, because I think, I can remember the days of doing the quarterly business reviews with my shipper customers, right? Going out to there, doing a QBR, being able to talk about what we saw, and then talking about what is next. I think a lot of people would do themselves and their organizations really good to apply that to these partnerships that they have as well, to be able to say, okay, yeah, Qued may be a partner of mine, but I'm going to keep that connection going because I want to be able to find out what is next and how do I stay ahead of that, and be a beta tester or be an early adopter of that next thing that may be being worked on, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So when we talk about partnerships, and you're looking at a long-term partner, how do you make sure that they're going to be long-term as opposed to finding yourself stuck turning over vendors, right? That is a painful process. I think, the more painful element, there's dollars associated to that, and that's painful. But the time is really where I think it becomes really painful. So, where there are so many different players in the space, or maybe there's not, maybe there's a very limited amount. How do you and your team try to help make sure that it is long-term as opposed to a quick fix to an immediate pain?
You keep asking hard questions. It's a great question, and it's one that's for us difficult to answer, really. You like I said before, you do the references, you figure out who they are, how long have they been in the industry. Like I said, it's a close-knit industry, so there's a whole lot of players that have been in it a long time. But at the end of the day, a lot of them have performed so well, and their company has gotten to a specific size, and then they have sold that company, and like we did, and they're out of the business for a little while, but then they come back in, and their minds are still good, and they figure out another technology that they want to get interested in. And so to me, it goes back to the relationships. Who do you have relationship with? Do you trust them? And you go from there.
Yeah, no, I think that's completely valid. And I think one of the things that I would encourage people to is, I think reference checks are still completely valid in this space. I think what matters in your reference calls is the types of questions that you ask those companies. If you just call and say, hey, are you guys working with Tom over at Qued? Do you like them? Are they okay? That's an easy response. If you want to call and you want to have a reference check, you might want to ask a question like, when you guys were onboarding with them, what was the biggest challenge that you had in getting your team to use that product? Right? Like that. Excellent. I can't say, yes, nice guy, love his hat. Right. I can't say any of those things. At the end of the day, you have to be able to, there's some meat that has to come along with that response. Right.
Open-ended questions. You're 100% right.
Yeah. And I think that's
what, by the way, I like the
hat. Of course you do. I love it. So let me ask you this one, because I know your leadership style from getting to know you over the years, and I'm curious to hear what you may have to say to this. So, how do you empower your team to make these decisions, even when it may not be the one that you would make sitting in your desk, right? I mean, you've got team members, you want them to be able to be able to lead their teams, lead these decisions. How do you empower them in that way to make those decisions?
Well, I'm going to tell you, for you and your company, that might be difficult because you're a really smart fella. For me, it's not that difficult. My job is real easy in the fact I've just got to hire people smarter than I am, which is not a hard thing to do. And at the end of the day, you put the right people in the right place. And, when you're allowing them to be a part of the research, you're allowing them to see what's going on, have the conversations with the companies. They get to know them and they build trust. And then you have a buy-in from your team. And so for us, it's pretty easy. We've got a really good team. We spend a lot of time having a lot of different people getting involved in these technologies. It's not one person making the decision. It's multiple people making the decision. And nowadays that's really, really important. Because like I said, there's a lot of technology out there that looks really good on the PowerPoint presentation. But when you actually implement and get it going, it doesn't work like they said it was going to work. And you go through a lot of headaches of them not being able to get it going. And you got to be careful about how long you lock yourself in. These technology companies, they want you locked in for 3 years, you know. And I'm like, look, you're really good right now. We've done research. You know, you're top shelf. But how do I know you're going to stay top shelf 1 year from now? You know, and so you know, you got to be careful of how you allow yourself to be locked in. And but at the end of the day, just get good people and trust them.
Yeah.
If there's an issue that you've got in your operations, and this technology helps you with that issue, you know, that then it's an easy fit. You know, get it in and put it to work.
Yeah, well, it's it's no secret from our side, right? I mean, we do appointment scheduling is where we live, and I can remember this process really well with your team because you and I had a conversation, which immediately went to Jose, which your leadership style is replicated through there because Jose immediately said, "Well, let me bring in my team members from there," and we met with Stephanie and team, and so we continue to see that. And one of the things that I beg COOs, CEOs, CIOs, give me every C title there is. I beg them, let me talk to the operations team sooner rather than later. Like,
absolutely.
At the end of the day, you don't need to be answering their questions because if you go to them and you say, "Hey, we found this really cool vendor with a hat that does appointment scheduling," the next question to them is going to be like, "Well, how do they handle reschedules and how do they handle PO changes and how do they handle this?" And you're going to be like, I don't know. I just thought it was really cool, and then maybe you should talk to these guys, right?" And I think that's what's been great about the process that your team goes through is because they do engage the right people. These decisions cannot be made in a vacuum, right? Like you need to bring team members in that are engaged in the process to be able to learn from that process. And honestly, to get their buy-in, to get the real questions asked. I can remember a company that we spoke with, and when the very first call I had with them, their IT team said, "Hey, let me just be perfectly honest with you. We look at a lot of vendors. Every vendor ends up not being able to service us because we don't do things right. We do things our way, and it's going to be very, very difficult." And I said, "Well, let me talk to operations. Like, let me actually talk to the operations team." Before we knew it, we had the entire operations team all in a room, and those questions were meaningful, impactful, really spoke to their process. That is where we found, okay, this is a fit or this isn't a fit, right? That's where you really learn what happens. And it is hard because you see so many different things, but and I'm similar to you in that way, Greg, that I've always said, if I've done anything good in my career, I found really good people who care and are passionate. And I think, again, we've seen that in the Syfan team, those that we've worked with, that they care, right? They want to make sure that they make the best decision, not just for themselves, but for the team and everyone else that's involved there and the customers that you guys are servicing there.
Well, one of the number one things we try to promote is ownership. Take ownership, and in essence, especially on the sales side, everybody is an owner in their little sales spot. You got teams that have good incentive programs. The more this technology, this tool works, the better job they're going to do. The better job they're going to do, the more productivity that exists. The more that happens, the more money we have to share. And we're one of those companies that absolutely share it. So they do have that buy-in, and they understand that it means money to them as well. It's not just the company.
Yeah.
So it tends to work out better.
Yeah, that buy-in is huge. It's absolutely huge. So there's no secret that 2024 has brought maybe a unique environment, some challenges. But the Syfan team is still pushing, adding new tools, finding ways to support the team. How do you decide what makes sense in a market like this?
Well, that's pretty easy. Our situation is we're aggressive. And so in a slow time, which we've been in a slow time for 2 years now, we very, very high growth in 2021 and 2, the exact opposite 23 and now in 24. We look at load count. That's not the metric that we like to normally go by. We like to go by, gross profit. What's the bottom line look like?
Yeah.
But when it's slow, we just get very aggressive. And so anything that can push the needle on load count, raising our volume up, because we know the pendulum is going to swing. It's downturn right now, but if we can add customers and add loads, that it's going to swing. And so we look and see, is this going to help us grow in volume? What technology does that? What technology? We're not one of those companies that want technology to come in and do away with our people. We're very team orientated, but we are about what technology can come in and help us grow with less people coming in. That's good technology. In other words, technology that can do the things that are easy to do and let our team focus on the heavy hitting stuff, problem solving, that type of thing.
Yeah, and I think that's a good area to focus, because when you start talking about load volume, right? Volume is going to lend to all the things that we want as markets evolve, right? And so being able to focus on that and find solutions that do help you increase your ability to handle volume. And I know that in my previous lives, I always looked at that metric of what's our revenue per head at the end of the day. And technology is a big piece of driving that revenue per head to be able to say, hey, we can handle more with less, right? And that doesn't mean less people as in terms of I'm going to reduce headcount or any of those things, but you can shift their focus, right? You shift to focus to the more high touch environment or high touch freight, right? Whatever sensitive situations that you may have. One of the things that a lot of our customers talk to us about is when they schedule some of these appointments, they go to schedule them and they'll get a pop-up that says, hey, you can't schedule this until midnight on December 6th, right? Well, instead of your team, trying to remember to go out and do all that stuff, we just immediately process at midnight on the 6th, right? So we get that prime appointment, and your team's able to just keep working, right? Keep working that in that relationship with that customer, build that connection even deeper, and take on that, that next load, that next 5 loads, whatever it may be, to continue to build there and make it even a better fit in terms of the partnership that you have with your clients there.
That makes it work.
Yeah, absolutely. So once you start working with a new partner, how do you think that relationship should look in terms of engagement, right? Like making sure the solution is growing with your business, right? Because and I think you made a good point earlier. A lot of these companies want to lock you in for a very long term. And then once you get locked in that nice long term, maybe sometimes they're, kind of leaning back a little bit, enjoying, okay, we've got them locked in. They're not going anywhere. How do you engage to make sure that solution is growing with your business?
That's another good question. I'm sitting here trying to think. You want to make sure, number one, that they are actually accomplishing what you paid them to accomplish. That's number one. Number two, are they coming up with new things for you that can help you solve current problems that are coming up? What's your opinion?
I'll tell you. Yeah, I'll tell you. One of the things that I used to talk to a lot of executives, and they would say, maybe they're complaining about this vendor or that vendor or this vendor down the road. And one of the things they would ask me, as they would gripe, and I would ask them, I said, well, what have you done to try to connect with them? Have you been to their offices? Have you tried to work closely with their team? And I think a lot of times people want to take the perspective of, well, I'm the customer. They should be doing that for me. And I agree. Okay. I agree. However, if I've committed to something long-term for my team, I also want to take some ownership myself and say, you know what, if it means I'm going to go down, I'm going to visit my TMS vendor and I'm going to spend a couple of days with them because that partnership is going to be stronger. And as a result, I'm going to be able to serve my end customer or my employees better, then that's what I'm going to do. I think we can very easily fall into the trap of, that's not my job, right? That's their job. And who gets hurt in all of that? Everybody, Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so your teams, and my father-in-law used to always just say a statement, and it stuck with me many, many years later. It was, don't complain about what you allow. And I think that is the way I believe that you can see a lot of these relationships evolve. We can spend a lot of time complaining about things, or we can actually try to improve them, try to push them to the next level, try to figure out how do we make these things better and drive. Or we can just complain about it, because it's easier to complain about it than to actually get your hands dirty and fix it and repair a relationship, or find a path that leads to higher productivity. It's also easier to just say, yeah, this isn't good. I hate this. I'm not happy about this.
Well, at the end of the day, you're 100% right. We, for whatever reason, I think it's just life, but we all are so busy. And it doesn't matter who you are, what company you're with. You got family, you got different things that you enjoy doing. The business is running at a certain pace, and there just never seems to be enough time. And so one thing that I have not done is come up to see you. And so I'm committing right here. I'm doing that, and I love what you just got through saying, because you are right. We say that we're all about relationships, and we work hard on building those relationships. But there's no better way than to just get on a plane, get in a car, go and visit them, break bread with them, get to know who they are, what's going on with them. You can learn a lot about somebody in 1 hour over a meal. And you can't do that if you're not face to face. And so I totally agree with your point.
Yeah. And it's a challenging environment for that sometimes, and there's budgets and there's all those things that you have to be able to evaluate. And sometimes, sometimes what you do is you take advantage of a conference, right? Maybe you're going to the TIA conference in April, or maybe you're attending some other conference throughout the year. Take advantage of those times to be able to say, hey, how can we grab coffee or lunch or dinner or whatever it is, and make that more impactful. When you can lean into that, you will find out more about what that vendor can do or what that vendor wants to do. And guess what? You're right there with them. It's no different than the way you and I would court any sort of customer that existed out there in the space, right? If I've got a large shipper that I work with, you better believe I'm going to engage with them. I'm going to see them. I'm going to be able to learn. And sometimes the best thing is to be able to step out of your own environment to be able to make that happen. Because there's so many things. I mean, there's so many things flying by your desk every single day, and things that you've got to be able to shift and focus on. And I think that can be really, really impactful for those that are out there saying, how do I deepen these relationships? So, I want to say again, Greg, really, really appreciate you taking the time to come chat with us today, as we talk about, how do you make sure that these partnerships that you're building with these different tech partners, that they're really the ones that you want long term, they last, and they can continue to help support your team. So, Greg, appreciate the time today, and look forward to chatting with you soon. Maybe I'll get down to Gainesville when it gets a little warmer again.
Well, the lake's a lot more fun when it's warm. Trust me. It's really my pleasure, my friend. I appreciate the opportunity, and things like this is fun communicating, but as always, you end up learning more than you share. So I appreciate your words as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Again, thanks everybody for joining the webinar today. If you want to learn more about Syfan Logistics, please feel free to look them up, check them out. Greg and the team, their entire family, they're doing great work over there. And then feel free to come check us out at qued.com. Thank you so much.
God bless.